Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the Daggerheart down moment. So I recently saw Professor Dungeon Master had on the No BS interview. I thought it was really interesting that he said that. He's like, a No BS interview about why D&D won over Daggerheart. And he had on uh, Travis Willingham and he had on Matthew Mercer. And he went right at it, like from the beginning. He's like, hey, did you get paid by Hasbro to play D&D? And there's so much in this question. The reason why he went at this is one, from his earlier videos, it was clear that he believed this earlier, like that he believed the only reason that Critical Role would not play the brand new, blown off the shelves Rockstar hit TTRPG that they just built, that the whole world was clamoring to be crowned the D&D killer, right? That the only reason they would do that is that they had been paid off, right? Like, and if you watch some of his earlier videos, he insinuated it, and even he realized, you can't say that outright, right? And so he got, and I think they went on his show to shut this down, because I think there were a lot of OSR and indie and D&D hater channels that were just chewing the scenery on this rumor, right? And so I think Mercer and Willingham just didn't want this to stand, and they wanted to shut this down, right? And so they went on, and I believe what they said was true, right? Like that they were very clear. Actually, Willingham was not very clear. He literally included a joke in his question where what he said was not clear. Mercer was extremely clear. He's like, not only have we not taken money to play D&D, we've never taken money to choose our system, with the exception of one-off events, exhibitions that have been done specifically, for one-shots, right? Which, I don't think anybody begrudges them taking some money here or there to do some fun, some, one-off expositions, Nobody really cares about those because they're one-offs, right? Like, it's just, it's not Exandria. Exandria is extremely important in the history of Dungeons & Dragons. First of all, it's a canon D&D setting. Exandria is not simply the world that Critical Role played in. It is a world that literally thousands of tables have told stories in, right? The Critical Role player characters are not the only player characters from that world anymore. There are literally 1,000 plus. I've played in Exandria. I have player characters in Exandria. Exandria is not simply the world of an Amazon Prime Video, show. It is a D&D canon setting, right? There are literally thousands of D&D canon hardback, black spine, red ampersand, as canon as it gets, right? Like there's no, like, it's canon, period, right? And it belongs to, and it is a world that has been inhabited by Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Masters and Dungeons & Dragons Dragon Masters. It's done, okay? And what's interesting is, and that's what they were asking about. They're like, hey, and Professor Dungeon Master was like, there was a lot on the line. His question was coming from this perspective of there was a lot on the line. And I'll tell you right now, watching that video, watching their answers, watching the intensity of Mercer, not Willingham, he definitely literally considered it a joke. But Mercer was very serious about this, right? And he wanted to set the record straight. I think he wanted to set history in place. And this is the entire point of this video. I want to talk about the Daggerheart Down event, right? So Daggerheart came up in the window of the D&D killer window, okay? It was January of 2023. The whole world was furious with Hasbro for attempting to end the OGL, right? And 3 contenders came out of the gate and were like, we are going to deliver tabletop role-playing games for you. And their 3 were Daggerheart, Tales of the Valiant, and Drawsteel. Tales of the Valiant is already done and dusted. It made the top 20 most popular TTRPGs this year, but it was like between like 15 and 20. It was very low on the list, right? Barely, just a few events, right? Not, Pathfinder's easily surpassed it, right? Drawsteel, right? It's really, Drawsteel is really fascinating. I would love to, read through Drawsteel and get excited about Drawsteel, but it was just delivered at the wrong time. And Daggerheart had already dropped, and the whole world saw what Daggerheart was, and Daggerheart was something real. Out of those 3, Daggerheart actually emerged as a real possibility as a D&D killer candidate, okay? But I think all possibilities of Daggerheart ever being a D&D killer were destroyed the day that Critical Role announced that they would be returning to Dungeons & Dragons and that they would abandon Daggerheart, that they would not give Daggerheart a chance at the big table. It had to stay at the kiddie table, right? Like, just like you've been stuck there, right? You go back home and like you're in college or whatever, and do you get shoved over to the kiddie table, or do you get put at the adult table, right? And you can discuss with your uncles and aunts and the family friend who's there and who's an adult and who matters, right? But no, like Critical Role was like, no, Daggerheart does not get a chance at the big table, right? And the whole world was watching. And I really think this is the Daggerheart Down event, and I think it is massively, massively important. And I think it's important that we start discussing it now, because you and I stand on the shore, okay? And and we're watching the ships go by, the tabletop role-playing game ships go by. But what happens every single day is waves and waves and waves of revisionism, right? And we need to be the rocks that these waves of revisionism get struck on, right? And there are a lot of people who have a lot of agendas, right? D&D advocates and champions like myself who absolutely love D&D. We want to see D&D remain king of the hill, right? D&D haters want to see D&D bested by other TTRPGs. Zealots, atheist zealots and evangelical Christian zealots both want D&D gone, destroyed, not on the planet, not allowed to be purchased, not allowed to be read. They literally want the books burned, digital and physical, right? And that like happened in 2023, happened in 1983. 2 different groups saying D&D be gone, literally saying we want this banned, not allowed, destroyed, struck from memory, right? Like, so there are different groups, right? And so, and they're all coming with agenda. And I want to capture the real history of Dungeons & Dragons. And I'll tell you right now, I truly believe the day they announced that Campaign 4 would be Dungeons & Dragons, it was cooked in the books for Daggerheart. And it really catapulted Dungeons & Dragons to a shockingly high new era. And I think things are now changed even more for Dungeons & Dragons and for all tabletop role-playing games. I think the ramifications of the Daggerheart Down event, the day Critical Role said, we will not use Daggerheart for our Campaign 4, right? The best description of this I heard was, somebody said this it was on one of the many commentary channels, and somebody said, I couldn't believe when they said this. It's such a powerful line. They said that if this, they're like, this is So this group was like, of course they're going to use. This was months before Daggerheart, before the announcement was made, and they said there's no question they're absolutely going to use Daggerheart for campaign 4. And the person's like, well, why not? They could use D&D. And the person said, no, they can't. They can't do it. And the reason why is, if Critical Role tells the world that not even they will use their own tabletop role-playing game that they built, who on earth is ever going to use it for anything else? That's spot on. Like that, you can't beat that. That's commentary. That's peak commentary. Like I'm like, when I heard it, I was like, ooh, you know. And the reality is, what's going to end up happening. And my point is, the Daggerheart event carved a new path for Daggerheart, and it carved a new low. It carved a gutter that Daggerheart dropped into, and it forged an ivory staircase. Actually, I guess you can't use ivory anymore. It forged, a diamond staircase to heaven for D&D. I don't think we can really count out how much the Daggerheart Down event solidifies Dungeons and Dragons as a winner in the industry. Every single word you just heard in this video is my humble opinion, nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.